There is a new world war happening right now. Not a future scenario, not a hypothetical threat, but a real conflict already unfolding between nations, corporations, and the elites who understand something the public does not. And here's the part no one is prepared for. This war isn't about oil. It's not about ideology. It's not about borders. It's about something far more fundamental. Water, lithium, food, and rare earth minerals, the resources you need to stay alive. The resources that will decide which nations rise and which ones collapse. The resources the elites are quietly buying while the world is distracted by headlines, elections, and noise. And here's what should terrify you. You don't win this war with soldiers. You win it with ownership. Because once a country loses control of its resources, it loses everything. Empires never collapse because they run out of money. They collapse because they run out of resources. Rome didn't fall because of invaders. It fell because its mines dried up and its farms couldn't feed the population. The Mayan civilization didn't disappear because of war. It disappeared because its water systems failed. Japan's imperial expansion wasn't driven by ideology, but by the desperate need for oil, iron, and farmland. Every major conflict in history, from the Punic Wars to World War II, started when powerful nations hit resource walls and were forced to compete for whatever was left. But today is different. For the first time in human history, multiple essential resources are becoming scarce at the exact same time. Nations are maneuvering quietly, strategically, and aggressively to secure what they need before anyone else does. We are living through the early stages of a global conflict that will reshape the world. But most people can't see it because this war doesn't look like the last one. It begins with water, the most important resource on Earth. Right now, 1/4 of the planet's population faces water shortages. Mega aquifers beneath North America, China, and India are draining faster than they can refill. Rivers that sustain civilizations for thousands of years, the Colorado, the Nile, the Yangtze, are drying, shrinking, or being dammed as political weapons. But here's the real story. Water is becoming a private asset class. Hedge funds are buying water rights. Corporations are buying farmland not for the land, but for the rivers attached to it. Wall Street has created water futures, and powerful agribusiness companies now control more water than entire cities. You can live without electricity, you can survive without the internet, but you cannot live without water. And once a resource becomes essential to life, the people who control it gain absolute power. Countries are already using water as leverage. Turkey uses its control of the Euphrates to pressure Syria and Iraq. Ethiopia's dam on the Nile threatens Egypt's very survival. China has built more dams than the rest of the world combined, controlling the water supply of Southeast Asia. This is not diplomacy. This is not cooperation. This is a weapon, a new form of warfare. The second battlefield is lithium, the metal that powers electric vehicles, batteries, smartphones, AI data centers, and modern military technology. Lithium is the new oil, and the world is sleepwalking into a geopolitical crisis over it. Global lithium demand will triple by 2030, but the supply is heavily concentrated in just a few countries, and more than 60% of global battery refinement is controlled by one nation, China. While Western countries debated regulations, China executed a simple strategy: buy the mines, secure the supply, and control the future. It now has deep influence over lithium operations in Chile, Argentina, Bolivia, the Congo, and Australia. Meanwhile, the United States has only one major lithium mine. Think about what that means. The next generation of energy, transportation, AI, and military technology depends on a resource America barely controls. This isn't a competition. This is checkmate happening in slow motion. The third battlefield is food. People think food shortages are random or that rising prices are just inflation, but the truth is far deeper. Fertile farmland is disappearing. Weather instability is destroying harvests. 5 corporations control more than half of the world's seed supply, and 4 corporations control global grain trading. Billionaires are buying farmland at record rates, and not for the crops, for the control. Owning farmland isn't about farming anymore. It's about controlling the food supply. And the food supply is power. That's why countries are making moves too. China has bought millions of acres of foreign farmland. Middle Eastern nations lease farmland in Africa to feed their own populations. Russia has positioned itself as the world's largest wheat exporter. Nations that cannot feed themselves fall into instability, crisis, and collapse the moment global supply chains are disrupted. Water is life. Lithium is technology. Food is survival. But there is one more battlefield, the silent one: rare earth minerals. They aren't rare because they're scarce, but because they're difficult and expensive to refine. These minerals are essential for fighter jets, missiles, satellites, smartphones, electric motors, medical imaging, and AI processors. Modern civilization collapses without them, and yet one country controls over 80% of the global supply chain. China doesn't just mine them, it refines them, processes them, and distributes them. The United States, Europe, and Japan rely on their geopolitical rival for the materials that power their militaries and economies. That isn't a vulnerability, that is a strategic disaster. And China knows exactly how much leverage that gives them. When you look at these resource crises individually, they seem unrelated. But when you zoom out, you see the pattern: water scarcity, lithium competition, food consolidation, mineral dependence. This is not coincidence. This is not mismanagement. This is not bad luck. This is the world reorganizing around scarcity, a new hierarchy of power forming in real time, a silent war for the foundations of civilization. And here's the most important truth of all: you don't need guns to win this war. You just need control. Why invade a country when you can buy its water rights? Why topple a government when you can control its food supply? Why risk war when you can restrict the minerals its military depends on? Why negotiate when you control the batteries that power its economy? This is the new form of empire. Not land, not ideology, not oil. Resources, ownership, dependence. Nations that secure what they need will survive the next century. Nations that don't will collapse long before their currencies or political systems fail. And the elites, the corporations, the sovereign funds, the investment giants, already know this. They're not buying stocks. They're not buying bonds. They're buying resources, because money is just a claim on value, but resources are value. Most people will feel the effects of the resource wars without ever understanding what caused them. They'll see higher food prices, higher electricity prices, rolling blackouts, water restrictions, supply chain breakdowns, political instability, and global tension. And the media will blame everything except the truth. The truth is that the world is entering an age of scarcity, and the people who control the resources will control the future. So how do you protect yourself? Start with the essentials: water, filtration, food reserves, enough to give your family stability when shortages hit. Reduce your dependence on fragile systems. Understand which assets thrive during scarcity: energy, commodities, land, and infrastructure. And most importantly, learn the pattern governments refuse to explain. Because once you understand that nations fight for resources, you will never look at world events the same way again. If this opened your eyes, if you finally understand that the next world war is already happening, not with bombs, but with ownership, then you need to hear what comes next. Because soon, we're going to talk about which countries will win, which ones will collapse, and how this resource war will reshape the global economy in the next 10 years. If you want to stay ahead of the system before the next trigger hits, subscribe now. The world is changing faster than they want you to realize, and you deserve to see the truth before everyone else does.